Today's video is kindly sponsored by HelloFresh. Salutations and welcome back to my channel. My name is Kidology and I make videos about everything and anything to do with modern society. And it has been a while. I thought I'd do like a little quick catch up here, just saying that I'm so sorry for my absence, that I haven't been as frequently on my channel as I ought to be. I've been going through a bit of a sense of the old imposter syndrome, and it has really hit me quite severely in the last few months, so I do apologize. I am trying to get over it, and I think the only way to get over it is to actually just keep doing what I do without thinking too much about it. And yes, so I hope you are ready for the next stage of the channel going forward. And yes, I'm so happy that you're here, and I'm so happy to all the new people who are here as well. So thank you so much for your patience and for giving me the time of day. I will get back to normal and I will start feeling a bit more like myself. But anyway, I hope that you are doing well. That's the most important thing. And let's get right into it, because today's video is a doozy. Now, I'd just like to set the scene, as it were. Picture it. Diomedes, a mythological hero in ancient times like no other. In the Iliad, Homer dedicates an entire book to this one man, this mortal man alone. And the thing about Diomedes is that he has no ordained legacy. He has no divine heritage. He is simply a man from a disgraced family tree who was determined to make a name and legacy for himself through his own efforts, through his own strength of character. He has nothing to lose, but everything to prove. And oh, does he but prove himself. Diomedes becomes one of the greatest Trojan War heroes and military leaders that the mythological world, at least, has ever seen. He is often described as a second Achilles. He was a favorite of the goddess Athena and is often described as exhibiting traits of virtue, cunning, bravery, and resilience. He was one of only 2 humans granted the strength to fight the immortal gods, and he wounded 2 gods in just one day. He is revered for showing great restraint and wisdom, and thus having a mental faculty which marked him as a true king and leader. So it surprised me when I saw Diomedes on X, formerly known as Twitter, going viral for exhibiting everything but restraint, wisdom, and leadership. And it really surprised me as to what he was going viral for. And this tweet single-handedly brought out of the woodworks the radical feminists, the incels, the manosphere. What the fuck? The anti-feminists, the populist conservatives, the trad wives, and even Lauren Chen, because this is clearly the issue of our time. And thus, I present to you, brethren, the Strawberry Cake Saga, presented to you by Diomedes, the Trojan War leader. Had her over last night to make dinner and figured I'd impress her and make a dessert too. Always goes off how she likes strawberry cake. Have her over and show her. Oh, I like strawberry flavored cake, not cake with strawberries. End of conversation. Now, just so that we are on the same page and we know what strawberry cake we are talking about, this is the exact strawberry cake that is going viral and that hundreds of thousands of people, if not over 1 million people, have seen and commented on X. Diomedes continues. In conclusion, I'm a stupid effing yes, who forgot that you can never like a woman more than she likes you. Not going to let myself go back to my whoring ways and hop back on dating apps. Just need to go back to focusing on my career again. Time to call it in. Bleak. Now, I'll elaborate on my opinions as to this cake shortly, but I do think that Diomedes could have expressed his love language via food far more successfully if he had just concentrated a bit more on the dessert and less so on the main course. Not only is it quick, simple, and nutritious, it is also very kindly the sponsor of today's video, HelloFresh. If you don't know, HelloFresh is a rolling weekly meal kit delivery service that is committed to ensuring that everything in your recipe box ends up on your plate. With your pre-portioned, fresh ingredients, you can make a variety of tried and tested recipes and new recipes that come out weekly. I live in a shared house, and with everybody so busy and running about, it's very difficult to get in my regular meals and to get in the proper nutrition when I need it. I also love to cook for people, like my cameraman.
It's taken 18 years to cut her onion, so I reckon you're alright. Oh, nice.
Thousands of tears later.
And HelloFresh has been so helpful in ticking all of my boxes. Easy to follow recipes, a variety of choice, dietary considerations, and offering a great opportunity to cook something new and interesting with the people I love. I recently made the most delicious Middle Eastern inspired nanisa, which is a naan bread that is made into a pizza. It tasted absolutely scrumptious. months. It was delicious. I was so proud of myself. And I've also learned through HelloFresh how to cook and to roast fish, which is something I never thought I would do, but it's been a very fun experience. Yeah, and over the past few months, I've definitely realized that I have entered my trad wife arc era.
He looks way too happy to be doing that though. I'm just gonna wait. I was like, food pan out, and you're just like.
Now, one thing that I really appreciate about HelloFresh is that your meal kit box is portioned, which means that you reduce waste. In fact, on a global average, your HelloFresh meal has 25% lower carbon emissions than a similar meal made with store-bought ingredients. Something that's also important to me is our climate, and HelloFresh is committed to offsetting 100% of direct carbon emissions and is also the world's first carbon-neutral meal kit company. So if you want to get started on learning how to easily and efficiently cook your next favorite meals, use my unique link below or the QR code on screen right now. By using these, you will get 60% off your first box and 20% off the next 2 months. And there's more. You get free desserts for life. Your HelloFresh subscription is also entirely in your control, so you can pause, cancel, or change the delivery address of your subscription at any time. There are absolutely no strings attached. Now remember, that is 60% off your first box and 20% off for the next 2 months, as well as free desserts for life. Thank you so much to HelloFresh for sponsoring today's video, and I hope you enjoy HelloFresh as much as I do. Firstly, before I critique Diomedes, I'd like to critique the cake. Firstly, I think my gentleman got confused between strawberry cake, strawberry shortcake, and strawberry shortbread. Shortbread and shortcake only differ in that the shortcake doesn't contain any baking powder. And shortcake also isn't so dense. It has a very fluffy texture. You can, however, make a strawberry shortcake with pound cake, which is a lot denser. And I think there is something of the pound cake element in this attempt, just based on the density, the rather intense density of this cake. And if you are going to make strawberry shortcake with pound cake, you would, if you want to get that sort of buttercreamed layered effect that he has attempted, you can do that, but you would have to refrigerate the buttercream and the cake overnight so that you don't get this room temperature spillage of buttercream that we can see here. Now that's just my 2 cents as somebody who recreationally bakes every now and again. I've never baked a strawberry shortcake. I've baked a strawberry cake, which is very different, at least aesthetically, to what is being presented here, which is why I think that this is more so a strawberry shortcake or an attempt at a strawberry shortcake with the use of pound cake instead of shortcake explicitly. But anyway, this was a mess. It was an absolute mess. And in any other situation and with any other person, I would say that that is completely fine, that this is a remarkable gesture and, you know, it would be the end of the story. And based on the reaction to this cake, I think that most people are divided into one of 2 camps. The first camp is that of somebody showing effort and not getting appreciation for that effort, which is bad and wrong, and thus everybody is pro Diomedes. What a thoughtful gesture. I'm sorry your girlfriend was rude about it. I bet you worked really hard on it, trying to do something special for her. There are a lot of women who would really appreciate that a man paid attention to what she said she liked and went out of his way to surprise her. And on the other side are people who claim that no effort was clearly made, that this is one of the ugliest, most disgusting cakes that they have ever seen, and that he should be ashamed of himself and should probably just log off the internet. The anti-Diomedes wouldn't feed this to a dog. Apparently he, that is Diomedes, didn't even put any baking soda because he didn't have any. LMAO, he really expected her to pretend to love this shit he lazily slapped together and put 0 effort into. This quite possibly is the ugliest strawberry shortcake I have ever seen. A little nuance follow up on this. When I say this cake looks bad, I mean it looks so bad that you would have to not even remotely follow the directions for it to come out like this. That kind of lack of attention and care is representative of how he feels about the relationship and how much effort he is willing to put in to make his significant other happy. And then crying about it on the internet. If this isn't a troll and they are still dating, this relationship is doomed to fail. Someone brand new to cooking could do twice as well if they just followed the directions. They would at least have cut the ends of the cake so it doesn't still have the shape of the cake tin. Bro, WTF is that cake? Do you not care about a woman enough to do even a remotely correct job? Strawberry shortcake is supposed to be fluffy. I don't know what you did with the ingredients, but it looks like that cake is made out of bricks. The frosting is so flat that it looks like you just put butter on the top. Everything is melted, like you didn't leave it in the refrigerator long enough before you served it. Usually with cakes like this, you make it the day before so it can refrigerate overnight. You didn't cut the ends of the cake, so it looks like the shape of the baking tin, which looks ugly. The strawberries are cut incorrectly. Is that strawberry jelly in the middle of the cake? What the F? I can't tell if this is a troll or if this person genuinely has this little self-awareness. But if it's not a troll, maybe practice a bit and learn how food works. And this brings me to my second point when it comes to the strawberry shortcake saga. I was reading a Reddit yesterday about men and cooking and how it is very symbolic, especially nowadays, of the breaking of gender norms, of men being willing to help women in the home, of the home becoming more of an equal terrain for couples. More and more men in our modern age are expressing not just a willingness to cook, but a real passion and love for cooking and for baking. And seeing what women, especially married women, say about their husbands who cook for them and who bake for them, it's really brought a lot of positive and a lot of good to relationships.
Welcome to episode 1 of Meals That My Husband Cooks For Me. Matt is quite the chef and makes a significant effort to make meals that are delicious, nourishing, and hormone-friendly for me. So starting with dinners from this week, Friday night he made a bavette steak with a side of corn on the cob, chimichurri, homemade whipped feta, and Spanish crackers. Saturday we had leftovers with a tomato feta salad. Sunday, he made these incredible lettuce burgers with homemade potatoes and homemade In-N-Out burger sauce, and we had leftovers of that on Monday. Tuesday, he made a sheet pan gnocchi meal with tomatoes, onions, spices, oil. I've never made gnocchi on a sheet pan, so that was interesting. Wednesday, he made chicken parm without the pasta and with a side of broccolini. Thursday, he made breakfast for dinner, and by the time Friday rolled around, we were ready to eat our way around London, so that's what we did.
Now, it is clear to me, after going through Diomedes' Twitter or X feed, that he is in no way cooking or baking because he has some desire to break free of gender norms and gender roles when it comes to what women and what men are meant to be. His entire profile, which I personally do not think is trolling but is actually a profile, is about trying to perform some kind of hypermasculinity via emulating Bronze Age perverts aesthetic, BAPS aesthetic. If you don't know who Bronze Age pervert is, his entire aesthetic can be summed up as follows: going to the gym, bodybuilding, pop cultural stoic imagery, and a populist conservative politics that is all about a strong leader and ethnic purity politics. Instead, Diomedes' cake was entirely self-serving. If his main goal had been about satisfying the baking wish out of love or like or consideration for somebody else, as he seems to believe he's doing, he would have evaluated where he likely went wrong, thrown away this attempt, and started over. Because that is what you do, not only when you care about somebody, but when you care about something, like a cake. You do better. And that is most definitely what you would do if you were actually living according to the character traits of Diomedes. A leader who strove to better himself, who recognized not only his strengths, but importantly, his weaknesses, and worked tirelessly upon them so as to become one of the greatest warriors in the ancient world, at least according to mythology. Instead, our modern day Diomedes has freaked out. After his cake went viral, the pressure really hit. Wish I clarified. She made her comment before I even showed her the cake. It was still in the fridge. She never even saw it until later, and she never made an attempt to show gratitude. That is why I was upset. This has nothing to do with the actual cake. I know the cake is ugly. I've never baked before. I underestimated difficulty. Insane how this became some fantasy for people about me flipping out because she didn't like my ugly cake. I even joked with her when I showed her it was ugly. This was about me feeling devalued. This was only supposed to reach a small audience, not millions of people who have run with it and made it something else. I would have clarified better. Yes, the cake looks like cement. You're as original as the other 300 people to comment that. Why do you look so old? Yeah, I might be out of baking powder, but you're running out of eggs. You should have worried about that. Oh, you aren't even worthy of baking soda. You're an overweight mid-bitch in SSRIs. Women deserve less. Oh, I love this guy. So clearly Diomedes is not taking this all too well, and I can can sympathize, especially considering how small an account he is and getting this much attention and virality. It can be overwhelming and daunting, and so lashing out is to, I suppose, be expected. However, I do find that this lashing out is incredibly telling. And I think it's incredibly telling of a wider conversation that I think really speaks to the current gender wars. This cake has really brought out a gender war when it comes to one of two things. Firstly, the having of expectations and being appreciative when those expectations are met, versus secondly, not having your expectations met, but appreciating the effort made in trying to meet those expectations. And I think that a lot of modern men fall into the latter category. That is, they do not meet the expectations or the higher expectations of modern women. And because some of these men, like Diomedes, feel underappreciated or devalued when they try but fail to meet these higher expectations, they therefore express frustration, anger, and hostility toward the entire cohort of women. At least to unmarried, single, modern women who are the bane of existence. There is a perceived double standard and sometimes even a real double standard when it comes to the expectations that are placed on men by women and by society relative to the expectations that are placed on women. But of course, these double standards and these expectations affect different people in different ways, and of course there are some expectations that affect women far more than men and vice versa. And it isn't necessarily a battle of who has it hardest. I think we all have it very hard in different ways, and the most that we can do is try to sympathize with each other's struggles, with each other's qualms, communicate with each other, and actually hear and listen to and validate each other's struggles and feelings, as opposed to just brushing them off as either woman being woman or men being man children. But one thing that I think some modern men really do miss is the distinction between what they find attractive in other men and what other men find attractive in other men versus what women actually find attractive in men. And this most definitely applies not just to attraction, but also to expectations, which I think is intrinsically tied to how attractive we find somebody. Looking at Diomedes' account, it is clear that he places physical strength above emotional strength and maturity. He places performative effort above what could be considered actual effort, or at least conflates the two. What the fuck? And based on the responses to his tweet, most women do not find him attractive, even though he looks like Diomedes. The only woman that I could see who found him not necessarily attractive, but definitely were sympathetic to his expression of discontentedness with this woman or partner or girlfriend who didn't like his cake, were a woman who I would categorize as being against the concept or the conceptualization of modern woman, which has increasingly been demonized. I think because of the cultural demonization and the oftentimes peculiar expression of being a modern woman on platforms such as X, on Instagram, and social media in general, many women understandably want to distinguish themselves or distance themselves from this categorization, and especially from its negative connotations of being associated with women who are entitled, women who have unrealistic expectations, and women who do not value masculinity and especially do not value men. And I completely get this, but I do think that this attempt to distinguish and distance oneself from the demonization of modern women has actually done something quite negative in and of itself, which can be demonstrated in the following comment. What a thoughtful thing to do, nice work. She sounds hard to please. You definitely don't want an ungrateful woman. She could have suggested you two bake together next time, and she could show you her favorite recipe or make yours. And I definitely think that there are good intentions behind this comment, but I do think that there is this sentiment where this comment has infantilized a man who is whining about putting mediocre effort into trying to please a woman, and it has inadvertently made it her, that is the girlfriend's or significant other's, responsibility to rectify a situation that was not even of her making. That is, she could have suggested that they bake together next time. She could have shown him her favorite recipe. The onus is on her, not on him and what he has attempted. She should have been in love with your effort. You dodged a bullet, son. If you're unsympathetic to someone for making an effort to please you and you wouldn't indulge them if just to affirm their attempts to connect, then you're just a soulless harpy. He effed up the cake. Take a bite to make him feel okay. Giggle about it. Smear some icing on his face and start making out so you don't need to finish it. This goes both ways. It applies when a woman is trying to watch your favorite movie but can't follow along and is asking tedious questions about the plot. She's trying. Protecting people's feelings when they're making an effort for you is what fosters mutual vulnerability and trust in a relationship. It makes them understand that even when they mess up, you recognize their heart is in the right place and you will love and support them anyway. Based on the way that Diomedes talks about women, based on his entire profile and persona, there is absolutely no doubt in my mind that he has no intention of respecting any woman who he may be in a relationship with one day. In fact, this was just one girl out of many. He is very forthcoming with DMs and with screenshots of DMs of the various women that he interacts with. As I said, he wasn't making this cake to try and connect with his significant other. He was making this cake in order to validate himself and for very selfish intentions and reasons. And his attempt at a cleanup job after the heat got a bit too heavy makes absolutely no sense whatsoever either. In his first tweet, he clearly states that he had her over and showed her, and only then did she say, "Oh, I like strawberry flavored cake, not cake with strawberries," only to later say that he wished he'd clarified because she made her comment before I even showed her the cake. It was still in the fridge. So at this point, I don't know what to believe, but it is not making sense. And when your story doesn't make sense, I'm not inclined to believe that you are telling the story in the accurate way. Who knows, maybe in a few days' time, this significant other or this young woman will come out with her own version of events and we will get some clarity on the matter. This is very important stuff indeed. But I do most definitely think that this speaks to an important underlying theme, which is that of effort. In short, in our digitalized age and the age of convenience that it has very much instilled upon us, I really don't think that we put enough effort into our relationships. Hot take, I guess, I don't know. I really just don't think that we put in the effort that we want to see from other people when it comes to our relationships. And I think we are all very much guilty of this. For instance, this gentleman wants to not feel devalued by a woman. He wants to feel valued and he wants his efforts to be respected and to, I would even say, to be revered. But he's perfectly willing to describe a woman who he was pursuing as not being compatible with him because of her desire to play medical school. I get a message from an ex-friend with benefits I genuinely cared for and would have liked to have been with, but her desire to play medical school didn't line up with my plans for a family. This is the message. Like, what the F? She doesn't even know about the other shit. Why is it every time I try to move on in my life, I'm dragged back to the same shit? The fact that this gentleman is going viral because people think that he is this sweet guy who put in all this effort to impress a girl with a completely inedible, hazardous cake, and yet he describes, I assume another woman, but maybe the same woman, as playing medical school, is just symptomatic, I think, of this real lack of self-awareness that I think is so prevalent when it comes to our relationships with each other, just as men and women. I do think that there is a real lack of self-awareness when it comes to recognizing and sympathizing with the other who is not us, especially with the other who is oftentimes demonized. But anyway, I'm interested in your thoughts about this strawberry shortcake saga and in this general conversation about, I think, not just the gender war, but especially about this idea of effort and people putting in effort or not putting in effort into relationships and gestures of love and affection. I think right now, with just so many people and so many options, especially as it is represented on dating apps and in the form of modern dating, it is very difficult for us to find the time, let alone the energy, to put in that real, genuine, authentic effort into somebody when we are so distrusting of their intentions for understandable, very valid reasons, when we are all really trying to protect ourselves from everybody else, from, I think, a society of people who we're not really connected to in any meaningful sense. We don't have the same sort of outlook for the future as most people do. Everybody is divided into their identity groups that are all in conflict with each other. We don't very much like each other. So I can understand why we are here, but I do think we need to buck up, and we do need to, importantly, communicate honestly and meaningfully with each other. I always say this, but I do believe it very, very strongly, and I think that we do have the tools, we just don't know how to use them. So anyway, let me know what you think down below. I'd be very interested in your opinions and perspectives. I do read all of your comments. Thank you so very much for watching this video, and as I said, please do express your opinions below. I'd be very, very interested to hear what you have to say. Thank you so much to all of my patrons, and thank you to HelloFresh for sponsoring this video, and I will see all of you very, very soon in the next one.